Welcome to the AME Food Testing Show. Today's topic, designing quality and safety into food products, with Felix Amiri, Food Safety and Quality Systems Specialist. Felix has worked for many international organizations over the years. He is the Director of Technical Services at Amiri Food Industry Support Services and the current Food Industry Chair of the Global Coalition for Sustained Excellence in Food and Health Protection. Felix conducts food safety and quality system audits in various facilities and distribution centers throughout Canada and the United States. He is a member of the American Society for Quality and is certified as a quality auditor under ASQ. Felix is also the North American Regional Manager for World Food Safety Organization. Now, welcome with me to the AME Food Testing Show, Felix Amiri. Felix?
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. I appreciate the fact that you're allowing me this opportunity to share some thoughts with you and the listeners on this topic of designing quality and safety into food products. The AME Food Testing Show is providing great service to the industry, and I want to just congratulate you on the work you're doing. Please feel free to ask for further clarification at any point during this interview if anything I say does not come across clearly enough. The same invitation, of course, goes to the listeners. Opportunities can and will be provided for such dialogue, I think.
Well, Felix, you're most welcome. You've been a valued contributor in the past. Let's begin with a very general question. What is food quality?
Yes, as a matter of fact, when you consider this question, immediately you know that quality means different things to different people. The same thing is true for food quality. So quality in general, when you're considering other industry sectors, is the same as when you're considering it for food quality. It's subjective. In some publications by the American Society for Quality, this comment is on quality is provided, and I quote, "Quality is a subjective term which each person or sector has its own definition. In technical usage, quality can have two meanings. One, the characteristic of a product or service that bear on its ability to satisfy stated or implied needs. Two, a product or service free of deficiencies. According to Joseph Juran, quality means fitness for use. According to Philip Crosby, however, it means conformance to requirements. Both are clearly acceptable." This is how I like to define food quality. It is the combination of all applicable attributes that makes a food product desirable and gives it the ability to meet the consumer's need and expectations. This is similar to the first technical meaning stated in the ASQ definition, except that I have emphasized the desirability of the food to the consumer, as well as the needs and expectations of consumers. That said, let me state my definition again. Food quality is the combination of all applicable attributes that makes a food product desirable and gives it the ability to meet the consumer's need and expectations. Food operators and laboratories are able to measure food quality. Some examples of measurable quality attributes of different types of food include sensory, physical, chemical, and microbiological parameters. Examples of sensory parameters are appearance, color, taste, smell, texture, and example of physical parameters are similar: appearance, size, dimensions, color, and texture. Examples of chemical parameters are nutritional content, moisture, fat, carbohydrate, protein, vitamins, etc. Some important points to note about food quality as follows. Consumers pass the final judgment on food quality. Consumers mostly measure food quality through perception. This simply means the use of senses: sight, touch, smell, taste, and sound. Consumers have the best opportunity for 100% sampling of the final product, while operators and laboratories only have access to partial samples of the final product. This is key to understand. I know that this does not fully cover the discussion that we can have about the question of what food quality is, but if anything you want to ask, feel free to do so, Andy.
Well, I think you've covered it, Felix. And whenever I think of food quality, I think of quantitative measures that managers can count. For example, they can count the number of spoilage units, or they can count the color quotient, or they can count various areas that build up to their definition of high, low, or medium quality. Wouldn't you agree?
That's correct. That's very correct. That's the measurable attributes, for sure.
Well, now let's move on to the next area of our discussion today. Is a very general question. What is food safety?
Yes, it's important to differentiate these two. And so thank you for asking the question, Andy. While food quality is perceived, and this is in general terms, food quality is perceived or measured, food safety is experienced. In some of my postings and writings, I have stated this fact as well, because at the end of the when we have talked about what we've done to ensure food safety and quality, it is the experience of the consumer that actually counts in terms of food safety. So it's key to remember that while food quality is perceived or measured, food safety is experienced. The Medical Encyclopedia from the University of Maryland Medical Center provides this definition. Food safety refers to the conditions and practices that preserve the quality of food to prevent contamination and foodborne illness. I'll take that again. Food safety, according to this Medical Encyclopedia from University of Maryland, food safety refers to the conditions and practices that preserve the quality of food to prevent contamination and foodborne illnesses. Now, this is how I like to define food safety in very brief format. Food safety is the science of ensuring that food is free of hazards. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Well, Felix, that's a very succinct way of addressing the issue that I like to reframe as food safety to me is that none of the food products will make anybody sick or kill them.
Exactly. Yes, in common language for that, the consumer does understand. It will not hurt you.
Excellent. Well, let's review what are the roles that we do to design and test food quality and safety.
Yeah. Design and testing have very significant roles in food quality and safety. Perhaps we can go to simple dictionary definitions for design and testing. And some of them may read something like this. To design is to create, fashion, execute, or construct according to plan, or to conceive and plan out in the mind. This is from Merriam-Webster Dictionary. To design is to create, fashion, execute, or construct according to plan, or to conceive and plan out in the mind. The latter definition for design closely mimics the definition for devising a plan. So you can, in terms of quality and safety, you can say that you are able to devise a plan that ensures these. Testing may be defined as a procedure intended to establish the quality, performance, or reliability of something, especially before it is taken into widespread use. And this is the Oxford Dictionary definition of testing. Design are the steps taken to move from the conceptualization to the realization of the product. And design provides the opportunity for building functionality, quality, and safety into the product. Testing, on the other hand, relates to the verification and validation. And I should add a word of caution here. Design efforts can be undermined during food production, processing, or handling operations if good practices are not maintained. So the design may be foolproof, but that could all be undermined if practices are not maintained. So this is a cautionary word for operators to keep in mind. Of course, many of the people who may be listening to this will already know this, that you can undermine your design and your plans or your intentions. And the one important point to note as well here is that while quality and safety can be designed into a food, these cannot be tested into the food. And what do I mean by this? I think a good way to put this is, if you don't design the food to have quality and safety already, no matter how well you test it, and if you don't produce it to ensure that those quality parameters and safety parameters are maintained, your testing would only reveal that you have failed if you do not maintain those. On the other hand, your testing confirms that you've done a good job. So the testing will not have any impact on the actual quality and safety of the product. It just confirms it. This needs to be understood.
Well, Felix, you've certainly conceptualized and defined what is a design in a basic format, and then what is the testing. And I think you've defined very well the distinction between designing and testing and the role that testing plays. As you know, I'm an advocate for, particularly in food production, for test, then release, rather than releasing and then testing post-shipment and then having an order for a recall. I find that to be sort of backwards. And so in that vein, let's move on to the next element of food production, which is a common acronym known as HACCP. Can you describe what is a HACCP plan?
Yes, Andy, before I go into that, I just want to reemphasize the point you made there, that after the fact testing, when products already shipped, is really a counterproductive thing. So as you suggested, it's critical that facilities verify that the products they're about to ship is of the desired quality and safety requirements, or meet those before it is shipped. So for any opportunity to do that before you ship products, for all the operators out there, that is the best way to go. Yes, HACCP is a very popular thing, of course, for good reasons. What is HACCP plan, a HACCP HACCP plan? In case the listener is not familiar with this acronym, HACCP stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point. Andy, please, again, let me stress one thing to the listeners. We're not talking about a mere plan. So it must be immediately understood that this question refers to a systematic, deliberate, and sustained effort at ensuring the absence of hazards in food. In this case, HACCP principles can be applied to more than food. And so you can apply the same hazard analysis critical control point sequence to if you're manufacturing an infant chair or a booster seat or a car seat, or for anything for that matter. You can apply the same system of analyzing the hazards and ensuring that in the production process controls are in place to ensure those hazards are eliminated. And this applies to food, of course. So simply put, the HACCP system requires the operator to know all of the likely hazards. Now, perhaps it's humanly impossible to know, but given current information in the marketplace, you should be able to, any type of product that you conceive of producing, you should be able to come up with the likely hazards. So the operator is expected to know all of the likely hazards associated with each operation, know where and when they could occur, control operation activities to eliminate or prevent occurrence, and prove that the controls are effective. In saying this, I think I have answered your question in part. What surprises me sometimes is the fact that many operators presume to be doing HACCP when they do not fully understand its necessity and role. they do HACCP only because they must comply to some regulatory or customer demand. But HACCP should be done as a deliberate, systematic thing by the operation.
Well, Felix, you've certainly defined the HACCP plan. And as you probably already know, I worked at NASA, and HACCP was originally developed by NASA planners to overcome the dilemmas and challenges of sending men to the moon and the challenges of providing them nourishment during the trip there while their expedition was engaged in returning them safely back.
Yes, and we do thank them for that, because it's certainly helping the food industry.
And we're taking that technology and bringing it down to earth.
Yes.
Let me ask you a follow-up question in that respect.
Yeah.
Can a HACCP plan be designed to include the two topics of our discussion today, quality and safety?
The simple answer, Andy, from the definition of design that we have considered, is yes. The obvious demonstration of the design of the HACCP plan to include safety starts with the hazard analysis itself. This is the identification and ranking of hazards according to the likelihood and severity, which is the risk assessment component. The hazard analysis itself is the process through which this design can be incorporated into the plan. And of course, that proceeds to the deliberate establishment of critical control points and the critical limits within which to control production operations. Quality, on the other hand, quality and safety can be and must be deliberately incorporated as components of the food safety HACCP and quality system design. How this is done depends on the expertise of the persons involved in the systems and the design of the system. Is there something that I've left out? I don't know. Sure.
That was very good, Felix. You know what? And to really address, as we talked about, the specific metrics of quality, which is a marketability type issue, and then to incorporate that with the life or death issue of food safety is critical in food. Let's look at some of the specific items that you, as a food certified quality auditor, would like to see in a HACCP plan when you do your audits.
This is one area where we can say we have all opportunities provided already. And I say that because the Codex Alimentarius have done a great job in defining some of the elements that need to go into a HACCP plan development. And of course, different systems and guidelines have come up related to the Codex Alimentarius basis. So I'm going to go to the Codex Alimentarius basis to explain the components, the items that need to be included or considered in a HACCP plan. And they are given in terms or in form of 12 steps by the Codex Alimentarius. And I'll go through the steps one by one quickly. Step 1, the operator is required to assemble a HACCP team using the right people with the right knowledge to develop and implement the HACCP plan. Step 2 is describing the product that the HACCP plan is being designed for properly so that the right step, right hazards are identified and so forth. Step 3 is to identify the intended use, because that's where you assess the risk to the consumer ultimately. Step 3 becomes very critical, to identify the intended use, because then you will be able to identify as well the susceptibility to the hazards. And step 4 is constructing the flow diagram, the flow through which the operation or the production is to go through, including the planned outlay in that flow diagram. Step 5 would be an actual confirmation of the flow diagram to ensure that all the process steps are in the proper places and in the proper locations with the right equipment and so forth. And this step 5 may be seen as a verification step. Now step 6, which is the beginning of the principles, and step 6 being principle 1, lists all the potential hazards associated with the step. and conduct a hazard analysis and consider any measures to control identified hazards. And of course, as I have mentioned earlier, this process of listing potential hazards and doing the hazard analysis includes the risk assessment, which is the determination of the likelihood of occurrence and the severity of the potential the severity to the potential victim if the hazard is not controlled, as well as the operation as well, because there are some severities that are suffered by the operation when systems are not set up properly. So this is a key step and principle 1. Principle 2 is to determine the critical control points, which means that the operator is to know where the hazard can occur, what type of hazard there are, and then identify where to control them. And these points will be critical. Of course, that's the intention of the critical control point definition there. And step 8, which is principle 3, is to establish critical limits, because you control within limits, of course. And some validation will be required at this step, requiring that the limits actually work, as well as for the critical control points. Some validation may be necessary to ensure that the critical points selected are actually the points where the hazard will be identified, and the validation of the limits to ensure that those limits would actually protect the consumer. And step 9, which is principle 4, is to establish a monitoring system for each critical control point. Step 10, establish corrective actions if deviations are noted or observed. And step 11, which is principle 6, is to establish verification procedures, and this applies to the entire system, its implementation, its relevance, and its validity. All of these elements or aspects require validation. And the final step, which is final principle 7, is to establish documentation and record keeping for the purpose of justifying to any inquirer that you have done all that is necessary to ensure the safety of the product, as well as to yourself to determine to quickly review and know that you are proceeding according to your plan. So the step 12 principle, which is principle 7, which is documentation and record keeping, becomes very essential as well. Is that what you had in mind, or these items or components what you had in mind in the question in terms of what to include in the plan?
Well, Felix, that was a very comprehensive list, and as I have done audits, as you have, we look for those things. We look for a facility plan. We see how the product flows through. We look for areas that they've identified as potential risks, and then how they validated those precautionary measures, either in cleaning or in testing. And we look for documentation.
Yes.
And we look for validation at every step. Let me ask you in general,
yes.
How does a company know if a quality and a food safety plan are accomplishing their desired purpose?
That's the final question, isn't it? Because it's really the final point where you for an operation, when you've done everything you can, and as you well know, you want to assess whether your initial expectations are met and whether you have actually achieved the goal that you have in mind. There's no business, as far as I know, there's no business that does not do that, whether it's in financial terms or the accomplishment of financial expectations or the accomplishment of the actual intentions of whatever it's done. And this, of course, extends to implementing food safety systems and quality systems. Quickly, there may be some school of thought that says an audit would help a company to know that its quality system and food safety system is accomplishing the desired purpose. I seem to hold to the fact that the audit really is, can only project that the facility or the operator is able to meet or to accomplish the desired purpose. So it's a bit different from the actual confirmation that the facility can. So as an auditor, I can go to a facility and say, from observations, from what I've assessed, from what I've looked at, and what I've seen, I would say that you have the capability of ensuring the food safety or quality expectations that you had in mind in setting up your system. But I cannot say you have assured. It's impossible for an auditor to say you have assured, because as soon as the auditor leaves the site, you don't know what else could go wrong. Even while you're on the site and you've left the premise, you've left the production floor, you don't know what's happening there, so you cannot confirm. But the way to confirm if anything has gone wrong or has not been done according to the plan is to actually track incidents. So a company, if it's a food safety or quality system plans accomplished, would know that everything has been in place through the actual verification and validation of what has been done. The simplest way to do this is to track all operation or product failure incidents that are detected internally or reported from external sources. If you realistically track these, you would know how well you're doing. Of course, if you're getting so many reported incidents, you know your system is not working, obviously. And the fewer you get, of course, that confirms that your system is working. But not to be confused, sometimes you can get few reports, especially from external sources, when you have not encouraged external sources to report these incidents to you. Also, you may not be able to detect internally some deviations if you don't have the proper methodology for identifying those incidents. So it could be deceptive when you have few, because systems to actually ferret out these incidents are not in place. So that must be done with the consciousness of this fact, as well as the determination to make sure that there's exhaustive provision to ensure that all incidents are actually identified and reported. Can I make or can I add a plug here for the GCSE Food and Health Protection SSQF program?
Sure.
I will not do this if you don't think this is a proper place. I think it's worthwhile, since listeners may not know about this otherwise. The SSQF program that is proposed by the GCSE Food and Health Protection Program, the SSQF program for the strategic assignment of responsibilities, comprehensive tracking and analysis of incidents, provisions are made for these sort of things in that program. And the implementation of effective responses to detected trends, also part of the SSQF program. So to answer that question, I would say the SSQF program has already considered this fact that each company, every operator, needs to for sure identify if their system is working through the actual realities that are derived from implemented programs.
Excellent. Well, let me ask you, you've been on audits, I've been on audits, where the manager has prepared several days before you get there. All the documents are all written in the same handwriting. They walk you through as quickly as possible and then shuffle you out until you have to come back the next year. Is that the purpose and the intent of a food safety / quality audit? I
know you're just asking this question because you already know the answer. Of course it's not. And you know very well that, and I tend to call this window dressing, which everybody understands, superficial attention to items. And this derives from the focus that the manager has. There are very good managers out there who really want to do a good job. They have the consumer in mind. They want to protect the consumer, and they're able to identify the areas pertaining to, or the aspects pertaining to their products that would harm a consumer or cause a consumer to be dissatisfied with the quality of the product. And they focus on actually addressing this. Incidentally, when audits come with that kind of focus, the manager seem to do well, or the company seem to do well in audits, because really the goal of audits is to project that these items are met, the food safety and quality expectations. On the other hand, the focus could be on passing the audit, which is the superficial focus, And so, as you said, Andy, documents are, well formatted, planned, and so on, without full understanding and just window dressed, so to speak, so that they can pass audit. Well, it's possible to pass audits when you have records. The auditor may not know if you just completed a record unless there was some glaring evidence that this record was just completed. So if you make up records, the auditor may not know, although well-trained auditors will find ways to identify or investigate the consistency of the operation by actually going on the floor and observing what goes on in terms of operation steps. So records that are formulated could be detected by auditors. At the same time, this is done. The practice is in the marketplace where managers formulate these documents and records just to pass audits. Well, in some instances, this has come back to haunt the managers and the companies, because then they get involved in actual situations that they've not paid attention to that expose the deficiencies, and unfortunately some consumers get hurt, and this is an unfortunate situation. It's a battle, and something that the GCSE Food and Health Protection is constantly commenting on, that the managers should actually be dealing with the realities that face their operations rather than just a superficial focus on passing audits.
Well, Felix, you certainly bring a world of experience to this issue. I'd like to now allow you to summarize our discussion today about what is food quality, how does that compare to food safety, how does a manager design testing and into food quality and safety, what is a HACCP plan, and what does the specific items contribute to that plan?
And since this is a food testing show, it may be fitting here for me to stress the importance of food testing by all commercial operations. At the same time, it must be understood that testing only objectively assesses and confirms what is already present or missing. Testing does not impart quality, as I mentioned earlier, or safety into the product tested. It only confirms whether or not the product is safe and is of acceptable quality. Testing also does not indicate the subjective perceptions and experiences of the final judge of the food quality, of food quality and safety, who is the consumer. To effectively ensure safety and satisfaction of consumers, food businesses and the operators of different establishments must seriously consider this fact, that the consumer mostly perceives the product quality, but mostly experiences product safety. And so some of the techniques that we've discussed, the HACCP program, a good, thoroughly implemented HACCP program, as far as I can assess, will be able to help an operator or operation ensure the safety of the product. Incidentally, some of the things that are done for HACCP pertain to quality as well. Quality parameters can be set so you can determine just as you do for hazard analysis, you'll be able to determine the parameters that the consumer is expecting or the customer is looking for, which is the analysis of those quality. Set some control points for managing those quality parameters, and set limits when controls go out of compliance to bring them back in. So for safety and for quality, the same methodologies can be applied to ensure that the consumer is happy and safe.
Excellent. Well, Felix, I'd like to now allow you your concluding remarks, and you can include a commercial message, if you wish, about your food quality, food safety consultations and your quality systems specialty.
Thank you for the opportunity, Andy. I would say quickly that personally, it's my intention to leave a legacy in the industry. I don't know how far I'll go with that. I don't know. The years are running along, but to do whatever I can to leave a legacy, whether it's from the perspective of my current industry engagement or from my involvement with the GCSE Food and Health Protection Campaign, to ensure that the professionals actually get the respect they deserve from consumers' perspective in terms of what they have contributed to their safety and satisfaction. So everything that I do, from my perspective, even the name of my business, Amiri Food Industry Support Services, shows that it was deliberately chosen because it is a service and it is supporting, understanding that the industry and the consumers have their own ways of doing things. I just support that products are safe and of acceptable quality. One of the key things that AFISS does is education, training of, apart from the auditing activities, the training of operations and operators and their employees to do more than just comply, to actually be trained to show commitment. And this comes from the deliberate effort in the training services offered by AFISS to ensure that what is said is believed by the trainee rather than just information that's given to them. They have to internalize the information in such a way that it becomes their own belief and mode of operation with respect to known science, observed incidents and experiences, industry practices, and so forth that have been known to work. So training, education is key. You probably would have seen in some of my postings the emphasis on the fact that we need to move from superficiality into the reality of ensuring the consumer safety, particularly so when we are all consumers. There's to some degree of personal interest in that because I want to be sure that whatever food product I buy, because I cannot produce it all for myself, is definitely going to ensure my safety and will meet the quality expectations that I have. So from that perspective, it has been my invitation to everyone to participate. So the GCSE is a free membership campaign, and you probably find it on the web. But if you need services from AFISS, feel free to contact me at any time. We can initiate the questions that you have and see how we can proceed with whatever your need is at the time.
Well, Felix, I've included all of your contact information, including your telephone, your email, and your website. And if any of our 65,000 listeners in food production, food quality, food safety, or food security are interested, I'm sure you'll be available to assist them in any way possible.
Certainly, I will be available, Andy. And thank you for including that information.
Well, Felix, thank you again for your excellent contribution to the AME Food Testing Show, and I'd like to wish you a great day.
And you as well, Andy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You bet. Bye.
Bye for now.